and Sam Darnold going to the Super Bowl here on Sports Talk Live. Hello, Justin. How are you?
Good evening, Your Honor. I'm doing pretty good. I see we still have light out right now at 5 o'clock, so that's encouraging.
It was encouraging. I went outside to look in the back, and it really is. And, you know, after December 21st, it's every minute, every day adds a minute to the time. So 30 days is 30 minutes.
That's nice.
And the days get
We
longer.
certainly need more daylight right now and some
Right.
sun.
Well, it was quite a day yesterday. Most all of us in this area, anyway, were in a lot of areas were all hankered down from the weather. I mean, I read a lot of things saying 12, 14. We easily had 20 inches of snow. I mean,
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And so you got to sit and watch, and it was an effect, this snowstorm, also in Denver, but we'll get to that later. It was quite a day, and the games were good. And you know,
Very good,
every
yeah.
once in a while we see those blowouts, but you know, the first game, Patriots in Denver. You know, you almost don't know what to say. I mean, listen. We all know that Denver didn't have their regular quarterback, and you know,
Yeah, but they had their regular coach.
They had their regular coach. And I think there were a lot of things if you saw his press conference afterwards, and needless to say that, you know, for those of you who are not aware, that the Patriots won that game.
10-7.
Yeah, and the clock just ran. If you played the over, boy, you were really out of luck because the weather was horrible. And the weather was good. We almost look at the tape, and you see, excuse me for my stupidity, because there is no tape anymore. But when you really look at back at the game, the first half of the game looks like it's played in a different place.
Yeah. Two different fields for sure.
And the weather got really bad, and it affected both teams. It's really a shame. Really a shame that the weather interferes, but that's football. That's playoff football. That's Super Bowl football. That's what we were used to in the olden days, when, you know, men were men and sheep were worried, kind of thing. And the you know, certainly if you had to pick a winner and a loser from that game, you know, Drake May.
Incredible.
I mean, what's to say about him? I mean, he really just
He's got a lot of poise.
Yeah, he ran 10 times for 65 yards. He also, you know, it had a
I
significant
think that's
impact.
the story right there for the Patriots, to be honest.
I agree.
Not to discount their defense, but that he only had, I think, 86 yards passing total. Right? Is that right?
Yeah,
And-
5 of his runs went for first downs,
Yeah.
and a 6-yard quarterback draw was the Patriots' only touchdown, and obviously the final one.
Yeah, they're you know, we talked about them being prepared and, you know, not a team that makes very many mistakes because they're just very well coached. Obviously, their coach coaches the whole roster. I think for me was the Patriots did what we talked about them doing all season, which is taking what the defense gives you, which wasn't much. It was enough to win the game. But they took advantage of some things during the course of the game, kept the ball moving. Like you said, he had something like 65 yards rushing, which is unusual for him to use his legs. But because there was a couple of times where I think he got caught in the pocket and probably could have run. Maybe there was a mistake on a route or something. But, you know, when when things started to fall apart, he escaped with his legs. He got a crucial first down at the end there when you thought maybe Denver could get the ball back. Um, you know, give the Patriots credit. I will say, they've we'll talk more about it maybe next week, but they've had an incredibly easy path. And I'm not taking anything away from them, but they've had the easiest path to the Super Bowl that anybody's had probably in the last 25 years.
Well, that's interesting you say that. He had 10 passes for 86 yards. It was a miserable day to throw the ball. It just was with the snow and this and that. It was tough. But you have to realize that they played some pretty, I know you think they played some pretty tough teams.
They did have the lowest strength of schedule, not just this season, but in the last, I think, 15 years.
The regular schedule they did.
But I think it's so. It's not to disparage them because no one's really. I mean, the teams that play tough schedules, obviously the percentage is higher, but because of the way they do the schedule, there's not much difference between these teams with the way these rosters are constructed, and obviously, coach and quarterback matter more than ever now.
Correct. I think people are just starting to realize how much the coach means.
Well, yesterday I thought it meant everything in the Broncos. I'm not saying the Broncos should have won or could have won, but you can't coach Stidham fumbling the ball inside the 20-yard line, and you can't. But you can coach taking points. We talked about it last week. It's the playoffs. We talked about it the week before. When you're in a fourth down situation and you can kick a field goal and get points early, you need to take the points. And I don't know if that affected their kicker later when he missed 2 field goals, but because those were a lot farther away. But you would expect the Denver kicker not to miss, especially in a championship game. But not taking those points early, I think, really set a tone. You thought that, man, those points are too valuable to leave hanging out there. And I understand, if you're 4th and 1 and you have Jared or Josh Allen, or you have Patrick Mahomes or even Jalen Hurts, and you're going to do a tush push type thing, and you're going to get the yardage. They don't have that. They didn't have that. They haven't had it all season. It's not their thing. They don't do that. And it wasn't a 4th and 1 situation. I think it was 4th and 4. In that situation, you have to be a coach. Take the points. They're just too valuable in these games.
So you're talking about Sean Payton going for it on 4th down, right?
Yep.
It was a decision on the first drive of the second quarter, a passing up a chip shot field goal, and the weather's horrible, changing. With a 7-point lead at that time, a backup quarterback, clear conditions, but it's going to go bad. 4th and 1, the Patriots on the 14-yard line. I have all the details here, obviously. Pass was incomplete and apparent. A low-scoring game that Peyton's aggression and his confidence in a backup quarterback. I think he didn't play that badly, but I think what we realized yesterday, why he's a backup quarterback.
Yeah, well, when you don't get reps, it's going to show.
But he doesn't have that next step.
No, he doesn't.
And so the decision to go, those points, and a lot of people realize that those points were very, very valuable. But I just want to get back to your point about the Patriots' strength of schedule. So they did have a strength of schedule. But when they got to the playoffs, they had to play 3 of the top team defenses in the league. They had to play the Chargers. Then they had to beat Texas. And then they had to beat Denver. There are 3 of the toughest defenses in the league.
I agree. They are definitely 3 of the top defenses in the league.
And they didn't get a bye, so they didn't earn anything during the year, except they earned, you know what? When you sometimes, especially with a good coach, when you're not playing super tough teams, you get an opportunity to learn about your players, and yet it doesn't cost you a loss. So you're able to build something maybe you're not normally able to build. So I mean that could be some of it, but
Well, those teams, I'm for what it's worth, the Jaguars, I think gave that game away to an extent. Not the I'm sorry, wrong game. Chargers, but the Chargers were also in a position to win and get a higher seed and not play the Patriots. They rested their players. They come into that game limping. They had players hurt on both sides of the football, which the Patriots took advantage of. Like I say, they're always going to take what you give them. Then in the Houston game, I mean, if the quarterback had played halfway decent, we wouldn't have been watching the Patriots yesterday. So I'm not knocking them. Like I said, they take what they give you, and that's what championship teams do. That's how they beat you. They let you make the mistakes, and the Patriots don't make very many mistakes.
how many times do we look back in history at playoff games and teams that sometimes even win the Super Bowl where you say, boy, they were a couple plays away from winning that game and they didn't go. And then that team goes on, maybe wins the Super Bowl
Sure.
or something else. Listen, the first thing you thought about when you got a Seattle New England game is Seattle on the 1 yard line didn't run the ball.
Yeah, when they were walking the end zone.
Yeah, and they had, I forget the back at the time, but like
Marshawn Lynch.
Marshawn Lynch. I was going to say Sean Alexander, but Marshawn Lynch, who was killing it that day and killing it that year. So
He had an exceptional playoffs leading up to those.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the weather in Denver definitely changed everything. I think you got to talk about the Patriots defense too. I mean, the Patriots only allowed 181 yards of offense.
Playing at an elite level for sure.
Playing against not a great team, but there were a lot of things going on. The team is good. Do I think it would have been that much different if they had their regular quarterback? I don't know.
I think Denver kicked that field goal yesterday. If they have their quarterback, I think they probably take a shot earlier. But again, I didn't. Even with Bo Nix, my question marks about Denver stem from what I saw in that Giants game earlier in the season,
Right?
and just some of the mistakes that they were prone to making. We talked about could they win the division this year earlier in the season, and I still thought that I did not think they were going to win the division. I just thought they weren't that close yet. They had the right coach, and it seemed that they had found their quarterback, but we didn't really know yet. But now, obviously, they put it together, but they have some holes. They have some question marks, but their play during the season had some question marks. And I know they won, would they win 14 games? 14 games? They're not a bad football team. They're further ahead than where I thought they would be. And not having their starting quarterback hurt them yesterday. But the coach, he outcoached himself. I understand you're in a fight. I understand that you want to do everything that you can to put more pressure on the other team, but you have a 7-point lead, or you at least scored a touchdown already. Take the points. There's no shame in walking away with points. And it seemed like things just kind of fell apart for them after that, and they just couldn't put it together. And when you do that, you leave points out there. You score a field goal there, your team is hungry. They didn't finish, right? They know that they came up a little short, but at least they got 3 points. You come away short, and they're completely deflated. It's part of the mental game. Take the points because maybe they'll play a little harder on the next drive. Maybe they'll be a little smarter. Maybe your play calling will be a little bit better. It doesn't hurt to take points. It just doesn't. So I thought that mistake was crucial because you knew coming into this game points were going to be at a premium to begin with. Right. And to be that close and come up empty is deflating. And it seemed to me that coupled with the weather, things just started to deteriorate a little bit. And I know, listen, the score was 10-7. It's not like they walked away with it. Denver was in the game the whole way, but they just couldn't seem to get over that hump offensively after that. And the Patriots got a little tougher, and they dictated the game after that.
I don't think anybody was really ready for the weather to turn that bad so quickly, too. I don't care what, you figure living in Denver, you would be used to it. Sean Payton hasn't been there all that long.
Yeah.
But I think he's got that Bobby Valentine syndrome sometimes. And that is that he's constantly proving to everyone that he's the smartest coach or player or whatever on the field. And
we saw that in the second game too.
What I always used to say about Bobby Valentine, I wanted to shake him and say, "You are the smartest baseball man on the field. You don't have to prove it to me, and stop proving it to everybody else."
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And it's that too. Like
they kind of outsmart themselves.
Right. He wants that to be true. I want my team to say, you know what? We could get that first down. Well, sometimes you can't. And you, as the coach, have to be the guy that says, they can't get that. I got to take the points. The points are more valuable. The weather's going to turn. The points are going to be more valuable in the second half.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that. We saw it in the national championship game.
Absolutely. So the exact same thing.
And I know that Indiana had a fourth down where they went for it and they scored. But completely different circumstance. They're in good weather. They have to throw that punch there. They need to get the ball in the end zone. In this situation, take the lead, take a 10-point lead to get more points on the board and regroup. Your defense is playing lights out to begin with.
So the other thing, as we continue to speak about the New York Jets' worst nightmares, is you really have to hand it to the Patriots organization. In a 2-year time period or 3 years or whatever you want to have.
Back-to-back 4-win seasons.
Back-to-back 4-win seasons that they are going to the Super Bowl with a new coach they just hired. The organization is, without a doubt, supportive, care about football, know about football, and they are never the spotlight. They are always
there's no negative
people
press
in the background.
Conversely, the Jets being in the position to hire a plethora of coaches that are probably all going to be Hall of Famers at some point, to not take the chance.
Plethora.
And I'm not
myriad of
I'm not. This
players.
Is not a knock on Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn is not a Hall of Fame coach. He's a first-year head coach, former player. The Patriots had Jared Mayo, former player, right? Everybody's rooting for the guy. They're putting something together. Vrabel's available. Sorry, you're out. Vrabel's in. And I know he's not a Hall of Fame coach yet. Might be one day. Played for a Hall of Famer. Might be a Hall of Fame player. Maybe. I don't know. But the difference being that the Patriots made the move, right? We've seen other teams, even the Broncos, right? Didn't the Broncos jump on Sean Payton as soon as he became available?
And they let him do. And when they made mistakes, when Payton, whatever you want to say about Sean Payton, the egomaniac, they all are, and they need to be.
Yes.
Right? And they're getting paid lots of money, and they work like dogs. Let's not forget that. They eat, sleep, and whatever, all at that stadium trying to work on a team, watch films, especially during the season, but it goes on not in the season too. But when he realized that things weren't working, with the quarterback he traded for or whatever it was, no matter what it cost, they pulled the plug, reverse position, and started doing something else. Where in New York, no matter what team you're playing for, if you ever did that,
He wouldn't
you'd be
survive.
fired.
Right. They don't have that freedom to
And
coach.
that's the media. And you know what? The organizations have to get a hold of that.
Yet
Wouldn't
they'll stick with somebody who's got a ton of question marks for the sake of not firing somebody.
Correct.
It just makes no sense.
Makes no sense. And it didn't happen when George Young was the GM. George Young would say, and the media was like, George, you could pay more. You have room. You have this. You have that. No, that's what we think it's worth. That's what we're paying. We're not going to take that guy. We're going to take this guy. He never was bullied into doing something.
Never.
The press,
He never
or
wavered.
whatever.
He knew his stuff.
And John Mara, not John,
Wellington
Mara trusted him, and look,
incredible
what got
trust. Yes.
2 Super Bowls.
Yep.
And listen to the Giants. Whatever you want to say about defenses, the Giants '86 team was one of the best defenses ever. But will I say it's the best? I won't. They had the best defensive player of all time, but they had one of the best defenses ever.
They had that. They had one of the best coaches ever. They had one of the best defensive coordinators ever, who became the greatest coach ever. That team was loaded. The talent on that field, I think, sometimes gets a little because Lawrence Taylor was so great. Other guys get overlooked. Guys like Carl Banks and Leonard Marshall.
Banks.
Those
Carl
guys
Banks.
were football players and smart football players.
Jim Burt.
When you watch those games and you listen to people like John Madden talk about players like Carl Banks or Terry Kennard or Mark Collins or just, and it was a different league. You could go out and get guys and pay guys to come and play, whereas now it's a little different because of the structure of the salary cap. But the Giants as an organization back then, from the top to the bottom, did everything correctly because they were football people making football decisions. And yes, they knew the business of the game.
Well, to give an idea about the New York Jets and their management skills, let me just say this. Sam Darnold's going to the Super Bowl. He won 31-27 over the Rams, and the Rams were a pretty good team.
The Rams were a good team. They still are a good team. Rams gave that game away we talked about last week. I was worried about their special teams, and sure enough, there it is.
And after the Jets, he went to the Vikings, the Panthers, the 49ers. They all gave up on him.
So I think what happened there was not because I don't think the 49ers necessarily gave up on him. I think the 49ers found gold where they didn't expect it in Purdy. And
no one expected it.
And and Sam really just went there to be a backup after coming from Carolina, right? He was in Carolina first.
Right. So let's just remember that he threw for 346 yards yesterday. He had 3 touchdowns.
No
and
interceptions.
More importantly, no interceptions.
Yeah. He does not.
That's the Sam Darnold we all know and love, right, Jet fans?
Of course. The Sam Darnold that has all day to throw, that his offensive line can protect him, just like they did in New York when he ironically saw ghosts against the team he's facing in the Super Bowl. I think when you could look back at Sam Darnold since he left the Jets, because it's so long ago, and they've already had 4 different quarterbacks since then, you forget that Sam was even there.
Right.
So if you just concentrate on his last 3 years as a player, what did he have in San Francisco and what does he have now? He's got Kubiak. And his relationship with Kubiak is what changed his career. First, he goes to San Francisco, then they goes to Minnesota, and whatever he learned from Kubiak, he took with him. The Vikings seemed like they didn't. I mean, I still can't fathom they won 14 games with this guy and didn't have the wherewithal to keep him. So kudos to Sam Darnold. The guy wins 14 games in back-to-back seasons with two different teams. He clearly, and we talked about this, I think, in our first podcast when we talked about quarterbacks. It takes time for them to develop. And it takes time each week. Every week is another step forward. And Sam didn't have that opportunity with the Jets because the Jets do what they always do. Well, we picked him number one. He should play like a number one pick. We picked him number one, so he's our starter. You've got to develop his skills. You've got to mold him into a winning quarterback. And they just don't do that. They just simply don't do it. They never have, and they never will as long as Woody's there. They're never going to get that part of their game correct. So they bring in Aaron Rodgers, doesn't work. But Sam, kudos to him because he didn't give up on himself when people were like, that guy's worthless, or maybe he'll find a new home. He could be a solid backup for this team or that team. Oh, last year was a fluke, 14
Which
wins.
isn't a bad gig because
No,
you
it's
make
not a
more
bad
money
gig.
than you're
Not
going to
at
make
all.
anywhere else, right?
That's right. And the Seahawks were all too happy to scoop him up. They saw something. He won 14 games. So they knew they had a good team. He does. I will say this: he's got the best player on the field in Jackson Smith and Jigba, but that team is they're in this game. There's no on either side of the field yesterday. Were there any great players? There's no one on any of those teams where you're like when you play fantasy football that they're your number one pick. Not one guy in the whole play except for JSN, who is a number one top tier wide receiver. Guy's going to be an absolute stud in this league.
When he turned around that defensive back on the and took him on a post pattern, I mean,
left him in the dust.
Left him in the dust. You said,
well, how about the touchdown where he came out of the backfield and they just let him go free?
Right.
Nobody was even trying to defend him. He was standing there all alone.
He really is, and he'll come into his own in the Super Bowl.
I think so too.
I mean, I don't want to talk early, but I'm leaning towards Seattle's the team to beat at the moment.
They're a 3.5-point favorite, actually. But as far as Sam is concerned, we talked about how quarterbacks. I think we talked about it with Jim a little bit. Quarterbacks become robots, and Brady talked about how you have to get out of that and have autonomy in your offense and a working relationship with the coach. And he's got that with Kubiak because Kubiak's running the offense. But, McDonald is a defensive guy. But obviously, they have a relationship, and he probably lies on Kubiak. I'm assuming that Kubiak is going to get he's going to be the next guy to get a head coaching job if these other teams are still dragging their feet. Because if he can do that with Sam Darnold, and there's a team out there that has a quarterback already and they're looking for a new coach, he might be the guy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine not wanting him, or at least not waiting to interview him. I know the process takes forever and teams can't wait that long, but that guy's going to get a head coaching gig somewhere.
Yeah. Well, another player to mention is the backup running back that came in when the regular back, he torn his ACL.
Well, they've been kind of a two-headed monster all season.
Right.
Charbonnet went to Michigan. I love that guy, but
yeah, I mean, Kenneth Walker
just is incredible. Not only as a running back, but as a receiver.
He's tough. Tough 6-yard run yesterday, 2-minute warning. He was 19 rushes for 62 yards and 4 catches for 49 yards.
Four big catches.
Yeah, you can't put the more importance on that.
It's funny
know. Go ahead.
I think the injury, and we talked about it a little last week, the injury kind of solidified their run game because you don't have to juggle two guys. And I think that adds continuity to an offense. I've never really been a fan of the 2-headed and 3-headed monster. But situationally, when the Giants had Otis Anderson, the change of pace back was a thing, right? They had Dave Meggett. But they also still used a fullback, right? They had Maurice Carthon. But I know Rodney Hampton towards the end there, whatever, but Earth, Wind, and Fire, right? All that stuff. Brandon Jacobs and those guys. But three completely different backs for different situations. But when you needed to run the football, you give it to your big guy. In
Right.
Seattle's situation, I talked about how there's no superstars on this team, but they're coached very well, and they're football players. They pack a lunch and they show up to play. But this kind of solidified their run game because of the continuity factor, where your offensive line, right? They feed off how one guy can run. And
Right.
if they feel more confident blocking for this guy than that guy, whatever the case may be, it just adds continuity to the offense that I think normally when you're trying to rotate backs or rest guys or whatever, it takes that element away where you're guessing who's in, who's out, what play am I running, what back do I need. It just makes it easier to just go with the one guy. So I think that kind of was like a blessing in disguise for Seattle.
Right. So, Matthew Stafford didn't really have all that bad of a day. He was, he didn't throw
No,
any
they didn't.
interceptions either.
They lost that game because of two things: the special teams, which cost them the game against Philly that we talked about, cost them another game in the regular season, right? And little things like the play of the year, and I think Mike said that in the text with us, was the 2-point conversion. Right? If anybody's paying attention and you don't hear a whistle and you go grab the football, you're the one seed. That game is in LA, not in Seattle. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but Matthew Stafford, I thought, played just fine. I hope he comes back because I think if they straighten it out and they address some of their issues, they can win another Super Bowl with him for sure. But McVay and the play calling, it's obscene sometimes. You walk away scratching your head going, what are they doing right now? And
Well, the opposite is true too sometimes. Wasn't yesterday, but sometimes you see him calling great plays. But the same thing happened during the year.
yep,
Same thing happened on a Thursday night game towards the end of the season where Seattle came back and beat him. And beat him, just took over the game. And I think that memory was still lingering in their head.
yeah, it certainly seemed like it because I expected. I know we talked about the Rams earlier in the season and they looked like the team that was going to go to the Super Bowl, and maybe it's because I just didn't want to believe in Sam Darnold, but I didn't think Seattle had enough horses, and the Rams just seemed like even though they were a little top heavy, if they could get over the special teams, that they would be okay. But the play calling, you have to scratch your head and just they couldn't get past it. And I think maybe I don't know if it's a character flaw in McVay. I don't know if it's stubbornness. I don't know if it's ego, like you mentioned before. But that team is good. And, I can't say they're better than Seattle because Seattle's beat them twice now. So kudos to Seattle. But I think if you're the Rams, you have to really – because I really – when they won the Super Bowl, or did they lose the first one? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, they redid their – they went to the Super Bowl with Goff, right? That was the first one they lost. Then they got Matt Stafford. But they brought in other players. They retooled the roster, coached these guys up, and they made a really good Super Bowl run.
But let's not forget their offensive line. They had an amazing center.
Yes.
And their defense, some guys retired right after that game.
Yes.
They had some really great players, big guys the size of the door to this room kind of players. So that were tough and are going to be at least two retired, and they're both Hall of Famers, one on the offense and one on the defense.
Sure, for sure. But again, who's on either of those teams that's aching to either of those players? Maybe one of the offensive linemen is a future Hall of Famer. Maybe, I don't know. But the Rams had everything, not to sound like Aaron Boone. The Rams had everything right in front of them, and they let it slip away, in my opinion. So it's not to knock Seattle, just that the Rams had every opportunity to be in that game, stay in that game, and win that game, and they just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly.
Well, it's timing is everything, as they say. You know, some teams peak to a crescendo, and other teams peak to a crescendo too early and start to decay.
Well, their window is as open as it could be. So it's up to them. I don't know how they're gonna or where they're gonna go from here. But credit to Seattle. Winners win. Seattle's winning. They won 14 regular season games.
Right.
They're a good football team. Their quarterback is playing lights out, and championship teams beat good teams in the playoffs because they are good teams. So you take advantage of mistakes that other teams make when you're a championship team. And that's what you have to do in these playoffs. And
Right.
the team that makes less mistakes wins.
Yeah, I think that's very true sometimes. I think sometimes a play that doesn't seem important ends up to be very important when you look down the line and at the end of the game. And both these games, if you want to say anything, came down to the wire, if you ask me. I mean, they're all 3 or 4 point games, the two of them. I mean,
Pretty incredible. It's unusual that both championship games are so tight.
Yeah.
I did expect when Knicks was listed as out, I was wondering if that wouldn't at some point blow the lid off Denver. And give them credit, they played great. Their defense, their defense did keep them in the game. But the Patriots were just better.
So we all know, just shift gears. We can always talk about the Super Bowl. We obviously could talk next week more about it and what our thoughts are and where things are. And a lot of things are going to play out. You're going to hear a lot more about coaches this week.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, somebody's got to hire somebody. I mean, there's so many teams out there. I mean, what are the Jets doing?
The Jets are doing what the Jets do. Same old Jets. They're stubborn. They don't want to.
I mean, are they not? They didn't get rid of Aaron, right, Glenn?
No, they didn't get rid of him. He's still there. And again, I'm not one of these people that says they should have fired him because X, Y, Z. I'm willing to allow him to grow as a coach.
I am too.
And I have no problem. I love how he handles the media. I love that he gives them what they don't want. And all the talking heads, who does he think he is? Why would he do that? Listen, what he says to the media is completely irrelevant. All that matters is whether or not he's got the locker room in control and whether he's got those guys ready to play every week. And that may have not have happened this year, but they were a terrible football team. That team is putrid. Their roster is disgusting.
The only guys they had were any good. They traded for draft picks.
And I understand they didn't handle the Aaron Rodgers thing correctly. Aaron Rodgers wasn't winning you a Super Bowl. Okay? Who cares? I don't care anymore about that stuff. But
didn't in Pittsburgh.
Harbaugh, Tomlin, the list goes on. They don't even kick the tires. And they've done this before. When Sean Payton was available and they had, I think it was Herm Edwards maybe. No, I'm sorry. The first time, I think it was Herm Edwards, and everybody said, no, Sean Payton's too young. He's not blah, blah, blah. And then he goes to the most miserable organization in sports at the time, the Saints, and ends up winning a Super Bowl. Then he becomes available after that ends.
He also had Drew Brees.
I understand that, but let's not forget, San Diego discarded Drew Brees.
That's right.
It's not like he, but and he had some incredibly unfortunate non-calls, terrible calls in those playoff games. I don't know that team woulda, coulda, shoulda won another Super Bowl, but we know that Sean Payton is a great coach. That's the point.
Right. Absolutely.
He becomes available. I'm not letting him get off a plane. I'm flying to him You're my coach. If I'm the Jets, sorry, Robert Sala, you had a year, 2 year, whatever it was. You're not the guy. You're a first-time head coach. Stay and coach the defense if you want. I'm going to get a Hall of Fame coach, and I want to win a Super Bowl. That's how you do it. And they didn't do it again. So here we are. 2 Hall of Fame coaches are available, and we got Aaron Glenn. If you're the Jets, okay. Well, what is that doing for you? I just don't see how you don't have it in your, somewhere in the chamber somewhere. Wait a minute, we need to take a look at this. Now, if the GM believes wholeheartedly in this coach, and I said at the beginning of the season when they offered the contract to Wilson and Sauce, this was a different Jets organization. This is not the same old Jets. This is somebody who set them up. Maybe one of those guys gets traded, if not both, because the contracts were trade friendly. And we saw Sauce Gardner get traded. And I think the GM has a plan. Not to sound like my buddy Dante, but I don't know what that plan is. It's different than what we've seen from the Jets for the last 20-something years. Now, does that mean he's going to get it right? Does that mean he's going to replace or can replace what he traded away, or how they're going to do that? But they're clearly building this team to the specifications that the head coach wants. So, and I think that's the right thing to do. So, that being said, I'm not killing Aaron Glenn, just that from the position of what are the Jets doing? How do you not even address that? Now we have our coach. All right, well, if that's how you want to handle it, that's fine. And when Harbaugh is in the opposite locker room in the same stadium and they're going back to the playoffs and maybe win another Super Bowl, maybe, I don't know, because we could talk about that, but you're going to have to look at that. He's in your building. You didn't just ignore it anymore. He's in your building and you couldn't get your hands on the guy. It just shows you where the two organizations philosophically stand.
Well, what I would say about the Jets is I hope they're trying to figure out how to draft the players with that. I hope they're not asking Woody what he thinks.
Well, that, as you know, we discussed it previously with one of our guests, is a problem. And so, Woody is a problem.
So, but at least the Giants went out and they got aggressive with John Harbaugh and signed him. I mean, I don't think you could get any more aggressive with a coach hiring than they got.
Well, let's be honest. Joe Schoen should have been fired before all this.
But okay,
so it's low hanging fruit. It's an easy hire for him.
There's some kind of weirdo thing that goes on between executives and owners. Yep. Because the owners don't know anything about football and they have some dumb executive. He may not be smart, but at least he tells me it's gone on through history of time. I mean, it goes on in every corporation in the world. Look at if you ever saw the movie Ford versus Ferrari. They had all crazy guys in between. Everybody wanted to shut down a program, do this, do that, and it just goes on and on. Every corporation in the world has those. But so you got the Ravens to hire Jesse Minter.
Love the hire. I didn't expect it, but he was there before. Great coordinator. A lot of Michigan coaches out there. McDonald's a Michigan coach, so I think they can put to bed all the nonsense about their filming games and blah blah blah. That coaching staff and that coaching tree is pretty good.
So you got Tennessee Titans hired Robert Saleh.
Yeah, good for him. I thought he deserved a second shot. Breath of fresh air for him. Completely different organization. Probably a really good place for him to be. Right. I wish him all the success in the world. He's a decent guy, decent human being, and I think players like to play for that guy.
I think he shouldn't have been fired when he was fired. So I'm glad to see that.
Miami. I disagree with that, but
not only because that day.
Only because of the Sean Payton thing.
Not on that day.
The way talking about the way they fired him.
Yeah,
egregious. Yeah, I agree.
Miami Dolphins, Jeff Hafley.
Yeah, I'm not too. I don't really care about the Dolphins one way or
Me
the
either.
other, but
So
but
Atlanta
yeah,
Falcons, Kevin Stefanski, which is it's got to be a good hire.
that's going to be one of those hires where you know last stop kind of thing for Stefanski as a head coach, because if he
Right.
doesn't have success and if he can't keep that offense moving and shore up that defense, he won't last long there. But I think he will be okay. I know
So
there's a lot of hype surrounding
I
Stefanski.
don't know where. So there are 4 teams left on the list. I have anyway. And
What about the Steelers? They hired Mike McCarthy.
oh, I went past that one. I'm sorry. And the Steelers hired
I
Mike
think that's the most
McCarthy.
egregious one, to be honest.
Well, I'm not a Mike McCarthy fan.
Neither am I.
I
I know
mean,
the Steelers fan. Most Steelers fans seem to be really pissed about it.
and if you wanted to be sure Aaron Rodgers wasn't back on your team, that was the way to go.
I was like, wow, talk about no thanks. Is he coming back? Is he want to play? Is he gonna? Well, now I think that's. I don't. I can't. He's definitely not going back to Pittsburgh. Is he
So-
professional enough to get over his whatever relationship issue he may have with Mike McCarthy?
No, he's
Yes,
not.
I think so.
No,
but-
I don't think it is.
Neither here nor there. He's not going
Not
back to
Mike
Pittsburgh.
McCarthy. Anybody else maybe he's professional
Oh.
enough with. But
Yeah.
my point of all this is there are teams out there, I don't know where the hell they're getting a coach.
I think
Yeah.
they're waiting for these playoffs to end. I think there's
Arizona
you know-
Cardinals. Are you kidding? Who's going there? The team's horrible. Buffalo Bills. You have to
I
go
think
in
they
there
should
and
hire
go-
Udinski. But the fact that they interviewed what 9 guys already or 7 guys, including Philip Rivers. I mean, that was like what I read that and I said to myself, where did that come from? What? How did that even come about?
It was out of professional courtesy.
And they're
Hold on.
also allowing Josh Allen to sit in on these interviews, which I don't have a problem with that really.
Well, I don't know if I'd let him sit down in the first interview, but certainly if I'm really thinking about hire someone, I got to make sure he's on those 2 idiots are on the same page.
I think it's a little insane that they're interviewing so many coaches, but that could mean that they're just buying time until they find or get a chance to interview. I'm going to say that the coaching staffs in this Super Bowl are probably not going to move on to head coaching positions because of the timing. But if I really wanted somebody, I'm waiting for that guy.
So, but I mean, I just want to scratch my head a little bit more. Cleveland Browns, who's going there?
That is a disaster. It'll be a first-time head coach. No tenured coach is taking that job.
So let's take another. You think that was a disaster? Let's talk about the money pit. They have more past coaches still on their payroll
Then quarterbacks.
than quarterbacks. Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, Pete Carroll. Love him or hate him, and I never really liked him. I think he made that team worse.
It sure seems like it. At least
mean,
they didn't.
whatever.
They didn't
I
allow
think-
it to play out,
I think
and they
should
fired him with no plan B.
Yeah, I think they should go back to Gruden and say, "Come on back. We don't
I
care
think
what
the
you said about
saving
anybody."
saving grace there
Tom,
is Tom Brady.
I think he's
Because
got a plan.
Tom obviously has a plan, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're waiting for Kubiak and Mendoza, and you pair those two. That to me seems like a likely marriage, because I think it could also be McDaniels, but McDaniels is already there, right?
Yeah,
Wasn't he the head coach before Pete
Yeah,
Carroll? So
think
I don't see him going back. Now, Tom
and that
Tom
was
might
horrible.
want him back, and maybe there was some internal stuff that happened that we don't know about that led to McDaniels not having the success he thought he might. But I personally think McDaniels should stick to being an offensive coordinator. That's his gift. It's what he's done with these quarterbacks in his tenure as a coach and offensive coordinator is so much more important, in my opinion, than him trying to be a successful head coach. Stick with what you know. But if there's something out there we don't know about, then maybe Brady tries to bring him back, which is unusual. You don't usually see coaches go back when they get fired from
Right.
an organization, especially if the relationship with the owner, was no good.
Right. Well,
I think it'll be. Uh, Kubiak. That's where I think they're gonna go, because
really.
if anybody who's out, there's nobody really on the I think the defensive coordinator maybe from the Rams, and then who's out from the Broncos that is a name. There really wasn't anybody that I think anybody was looking for. I think if anything, they were looking for coaches from the other two staffs. So I think you'll see Kubiak get an interview with the Raiders, maybe with the Browns, but the Browns. I mean it's a city that deserves football and deserves a good football team, but it's ownership. It's just flat out ownership. They're not interested in winning football games. They're interested in having the number one pick and selling that to their fan base for as much money as possible, and then doing it all over again next year. And they've done it countless times over the last 20, 25 years. I know they've got the greatest defensive player, maybe of all time. So how are they going to proceed with that and win football games? And I don't think the ownership is committed to winning football games. I really don't.
think that's a big question, and I think also, not to switch from coaches for a second, I think there's a big question in Tampa Bay. Where are you going on a quarterback there? I mean, I think his contract is up or close to being up.
Well, they didn't fire the coach, right? He's still there.
No,
Yeah.
we're talking about.
I like him. I hope he's able to pull it together.
Me
I
too.
would bring Baker back. I mean, he's had success.
But he fell off towards the end of the year.
He did, but he was hurt, right? We found out later that he was playing with an injury. He's a tough kid. I mean, I didn't really care for him too much coming out of college with all of his antics and the stuff that was behind him, but tough kid and good quarterback, and he plays like a winner. And you have to admit, I mean, from there, where does he go if he leaves Tampa Bay? If Tampa Bay's going to go another route with another quarterback, then they're probably going to get another head coach.
Maybe he goes to Miami.
Yeah, he could.
Wouldn't be.
I mean, Miami's a mess too, though.
Everybody's a mess, but everybody's. There are more teams and messes here than ever I remember.
That's the NFL. That's today's NFL.
What? There were no juggernauts where everyone. There wasn't that. Who's on today? Oh, let's watch Oklahoma. Oh, Oklahoma. Let's watch Kansas City because they're going to be amazing and we're going to see cool things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, knows? I think you're the Patriot model, and this has to scare you if you're not a New England fan. What they did under Belichick was pretty simple, and I'm not discrediting their coaching. Their coaching is tremendous, but they knew how to manage a 53-man roster where these other teams don't. They knew that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round draft picks were crucially, vitally important to winning football games. That those players matter. And these other teams that are trading away 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks to get up and get a number one quarterback or to fill this guy's position, it very rarely turns out in the end that your team is successful. So, and I know they had the greatest quarterback in the world. I get that. But they had the greatest coach too. They just did things in an era where everybody was scrambling to find cap space. You never heard that problem with the Patriots. Why not? Who did they? Oh, well, Tom didn't take a lot of money. Yeah, but it's more than that, because other teams paid quarterbacks more than Tom was getting, regardless of what he gave back to the team, and had virtually no success. Maybe the Chiefs struck gold there, and you could throw them in that category. Managing the roster, knowing how to draft, knowing that you have coaches and scouts in your organization that can define talent, see talent on the field, and coach those players from top to bottom is what makes a winner. And here they are back in the Super Bowl.
Right.
Who's on, like I said, who's on their roster? Stephon Diggs is not the superstar he was previously. I'm not knocking him. Different player. Been to 3 championship games. This is the first time he's gotten to the Super Bowl, 3 different teams. He's a selfless player. We talked about that. We looked at some of the players they have on defense. You're not going to see like that clown yesterday for Seattle, who I'm just waiting for that to be the soundbite of the week. Somebody always says something stupid during Super Bowl week that gives the other team bulletin board material.
Right.
I guarantee it's going to come from that guy. He can't keep his mouth shut. But you won't see that from the Patriots. You just won't. I seriously doubt that's going to happen. And their players are Patriot players. What does that mean? The Patriot way, the way they do things. It's went from Belichick. Vrabel played in the system. He also played for the Steelers under Cowher. So he's got a pedigree. He knows what it takes to build a locker room. So, that has to be something, especially if you're the Jets and Woody Johnson. Man, you missed the boat again. They didn't even give him an interview.
Yeah, well, I think
although I think it's a foregone conclusion that Vrabel was going to New England.
Yeah.
But if you're the Jets, forget about hindsight being 2020. You can't let that happen. You got to at least give the guy an honest interview. Maybe he blows you away. Maybe you can make him an offer. Hey, come here instead.
I think it.
He probably didn't even answer the phone if they called.
Right. I think that's a good place to leave it. I think next week we're going to do our Super Bowl preview. We look forward to doing that. We appreciate you all for watching and listening wherever you are. Please like and subscribe. Justin, nice to see you. Thank you again.
Always a pleasure, Steve. Thank you for having me.
And that's a wrap.